Next, we're on to Rome, the emergence of the Roman culture. The Roman culture itself was actually a confluence of two pre-existing civilizations. The first of those civilizations was the one that we just looked at, the Greek civilizations. As I mentioned previously, the Greeks settled all throughout the Mediterranean. They established colonies. Well, some of those colonies were located on the Italian peninsula. The second culture that had an influence on the Romans was a civilization called the Etruscans. The Etruscans were located in the northern part of the Italian peninsula. According to the book, they most likely immigrated from what is today modern day Turkey. According to the book, these two cultures melded together to form what would eventually become the Roman civilization. The Roman civilization was developed into, in the first part of it, a republic. Now, what is a republic? A republic is made up of a governmental system. The governmental system consists of two consuls, or leaders, who help look over the people. These consuls work together with what's called a senate. The senate, in fact, elects the two consuls. In the Roman era, the senate was made up of a people called patricians, or simply upper class individuals. There was another subgroup of people called plebeians or plebs. These were lower class individuals. They had no rights when it came to governmental policy. So there was a quick divide between patricians, the upper class individuals, and plebeians, the lower class individuals. The Roman culture also had a large amount of slaves in it. It was a heavily slave occupied area. So you had a many multifaceted level of Roman culture. And how it worked at the top of it was through the Roman Republic, and that was their system of governance. The consuls would agree with each other, or they would argue, they would seek help from the Senate, and it would process like that. Roman law was a big element inside of the Republic, and in fact, some of the laws developed by the Roman Republic are still in use today. The first set of Roman laws that we can actually look at, according to historians, is called the 12 Tables. The 12 Tables was a system of laws that the Roman Republic developed. And as I mentioned, some of those are still used today. For example, one of them is the 30-day grace period. You may be aware that if a creditor is seeking to get money from you that you owe him, they can file charges. Usually they have to wait about 30 days before they can go ahead and enact a penalty against you. Well, this was first developed by the Romans. The Romans realized people need a little bit of extra prescribed time, once it's found out that they owe a debt. And they're usually allowed a 30-day time period according to the Romans. Well, we still use these same sort of laws today. You have a little bit of time before a debt or a creditor can go after you in court, and etc., etc. The Romans realized that there should be a prescribed time period. So it's kind of neat because once again, this law was created over 2,500 years ago, and we're still essentially using it now. So that's fascinating in my mind. Another one is what's called here in the state of Florida the Baker Act. The Baker Act deals in a lot of instances when you have an individual, for example, an older person who develops Alzheimer's or dementia and can no longer take care of themselves. Well, their family can petition the court here in Florida to ask to have power of attorney or guardianship over that person to help them with their daily activities, make sure all of their bills are paid, make sure that, they don't get lost, they can have control over their car, their bank account is extremely important, all those sort of other items. Well, that's a very important law here in the state of Florida. Once again, that was in fact developed by the Romans themselves. The Romans had a specific law saying that if an older person goes mad, or essentially crazy, then his family could petition the court in Rome to have power over that individual to make sure that they could make all the important decisions in that individual's lives. Once again, we're talking about 2,500 years ago. These laws laid the foundation for our modern day society. Other elements from the 12 Tables, the term negligence was developed by the Romans, and we'll go over that in class. Another one was anti-bribery laws. The rule of law was so important to the Romans that they needed to make sure that it worked effectively. And if you're allowed to bribe judges and courts, then you would have a problem. So the Romans enacted anti-bribery laws where you couldn't pay somebody to have a decision go in your favor because they understood the rule of law was extremely important. We're going to move on, and it's two videos I've found online that will help you. The first is Rome versus Carthage. We'll get to see a little bit about how the Romans, in fact, began to expand the Republic throughout the Mediterranean, one of their greatest enemies, the Carthaginians. And then the second is, in fact, our second historical hero, which is Julius Caesar himself. And we'll talk more about both of those in class. But I'll see you next Monday. Good luck.